You have probably felt this before. You go out of your way to help someone. You defend them when others doubt them. You give your time, your energy, your advice. You become their safe place. And then, slowly, something shifts. They pull away. They criticize you. They distance themselves. Sometimes they even turn against you. And what unsettles you most is not the betrayal. It's the confusion. How does someone betray the very person who helped them? This pattern is older than you think, and it is not random. When you help someone repeatedly, especially during their lowest moments, you step into a psychological role that feels generous on the surface, but is far more complicated underneath. At first, helping creates connection. It activates reciprocity. A powerful rule in behavioral psychology. When someone receives help, their brain registers a subtle debt. In healthy relationships, this debt is repaid with appreciation or support in return. But when the help is large, repeated, or tied to emotional rescue, something else happens. Instead of gratitude, the other person may feel shame. Shame is not just embarrassment. It is a threat to identity. When someone needs you too much, your presence becomes a mirror reflecting their weakness. And the brain does not like mirrors that expose inadequacy. So instead of feeling grateful, they feel smaller. And the mind will do almost anything to escape feeling small. This is where cognitive dissonance begins. Cognitive dissonance occurs when a person holds two conflicting beliefs. I am capable and independent, and I needed someone else to save me. The tension between those beliefs is uncomfortable, and the brain wants relief. There are two ways to resolve that tension. One is to integrate the help and accept temporary vulnerability. The other is to reduce the status of the helper. Many people choose the second if they can convince themselves that you weren't that important, or that you helped for selfish reasons, or that you are controlling, then the imbalance disappears. Their self-image is restored. The betrayal is not always conscious. It is defensive. Attachment theory adds another layer. People with avoidant attachment styles often equate closeness with loss of autonomy. When you support them during crisis, they feel relief in the moment. But once stability returns, their nervous system begins to interpret your closeness as a threat. Distance becomes their way of regulating that threat. Sometimes that distance appears as coldness. Sometimes as criticism. Sometimes as turning against you to prove they no longer need you. You experience it as ingratitude. Underneath, it is fear of dependency. There is also a status dynamic involved. Human relationships are shaped by subtle hierarchies. When you are consistently the giver, you unintentionally occupy the higher status role. You become the competent one, the stable one, the rescuer. If the gap becomes too wide, resentment can form, especially if the other person feels they can never repay you equally. Helping, paradoxically, can create inequality, and inequality creates tension. Think of it like a seesaw. At first, both people adjust naturally, but if one person consistently carries more weight, the structure locks into imbalance. The person on the higher end feels responsible, neither feels free. The brain craves autonomy as much as connection. When autonomy feels compromised, even by kindness, the system seeks correction. Sometimes that correction looks like withdrawal, sometimes rebellion, and sometimes betrayal. Projection also plays a role. Projection is a defense mechanism where people attribute to others the feelings they cannot tolerate in themselves. If they feel guilt for needing you, they may accuse you of being controlling. If they feel dependent, they may label you as overbearing. If they feel inferior, they may claim you act superior. Psychologically, it is you are not naive for helping. Your nervous system is wired for cooperation. Humans evolved in groups where mutual aid increased survival. Helping strengthens bonds in balanced systems. The issue is not that you help. It is how the dynamic stabilizes around that help. When support becomes identity, the relationship becomes asymmetrical. Over time, your identity may subtly fuse with being indispensable. Behavioral psychology explains this through reinforcement conditioning. When you help someone and they express relief or closeness, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin. You feel bonded and significant. You begin associating helping with connection. So you help more. But relationships built on one-sided regulation rarely remain stable. When someone relies on you for emotional stability, they do not develop internal regulation. And when they finally attempt to stand on their own, they may perceive you as symbolic of the time they were unstable. You represent their weakest chapter. And people often distance themselves from reminders of their weakest chapters. To recognize this pattern early, notice intensity during crisis. If someone bonds with you, primarily when they are struggling, that attachment may be regulation-based rather than connection-based. In neurological terms, you are acting as an external nervous system. When their stress decreases, your perceived necessity decreases. Also observe reciprocity over time. Reciprocity does not mean equal favors. It means mutual emotional investment. When one party consistently gives more, perceived fairness drops. When fairness drops, dissatisfaction grows silently. Pay attention to subtle resentment, dismissive jokes, minimizing your contributions, or reframing your help as interference are early signs of cognitive dissonance. The mind is already trying to reduce the imbalance. Examine your own reinforcement loop as well. Do you feel most connected when someone needs you? If so, your attachment system may be anchored to usefulness rather than mutuality. That makes you vulnerable to choosing people who are unstable. When you repeatedly solve someone's emotional problems, when you integrate all of this, a clearer model emerges. Status imbalance makes them feel inferior. Autonomy threat makes them fear dependency. To relieve these pressures, the simplest path is to psychologically reduce you. They feel equal again. Not because you wronged them, but because equality had to be restored in their mind. This is why betrayal often follows periods of intense support. The system corrects itself. The answer is not to stop helping. It is to recalibrate how you help. Instead of being the stabilizer, become the supporter of their stabilization. Instead of solving, guide. Instead of absorbing their chaos, allow them to face manageable discomfort. When someone solves their own problem with you nearby, pride remains intact. Autonomy stays preserved. There is no debt heavy enough to resent. You cannot control whether someone projects, withdraws, or rewrites the story of what you did for them. But you can control whether you build relationships on equality or dependency. If you look back, you may notice a pattern. You entered when they were fractured. You became essential. Once they stabilized, you became optional. That shift hurts because your nervous system bonded at the moment of intensity. But intensity is not security. Security is quiet, balanced, and reciprocal. The next time you feel the pull to overextend yourself, pause. Ask whether you are strengthening them or replacing their strength. And that is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their defenses. You were not wrong to care. You are participating in a dynamic your brain never consciously named. Now, you can see it. And once you see the pattern, you stop taking the correction personally. You let people rise without standing beneath them. You let them fall without becoming the ground. And if someone distances themselves after you help them, you understand what likely moved inside them. Not gratitude, not cruelty, but the quiet need to feel whole on their own.